Hello, and welcome to Real Person Reviews. I'm Sam, and I'm a real person. And today I want to talk to you about Mario's Picross for the Game Boy. Let's see, so a few things to say up front here, I suppose, for this one is that I'm playing it on the 3DS Virtual Console, so, I mean, as far as I know, that stuff's pretty accurate, but that's the one I'm playing, not the actual Game Boy cartridge, which is why I can't hold it up for you at the end. This is the second Picross game I've talked about. The previous one was My Nintendo Picross: The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. That mouthful. But just in case you haven't, you haven't checked out that video and don't want to go back there, just hear the basics. I'm going to try to do a quicker explanation, hopefully, of the basics of what Picross is for you. And I can see that Mario is kind of a character that might jump out at you. This is a cheap game that's out there on the Virtual Console. It's also available on Game Boy, so maybe this is the one. And also it's I will say this one seems like a pretty good starting point. It's pretty simple, pretty basic stuff, and it'll ease you into the idea of Picross. And I think, if you get it pretty cheap, it's a nice way to see if you're even interested and whatnot. So that's why I wanted to at least re-explain what Picross is a little bit for this. As always, there's a written review you can check out before, after, or instead of this video review. I'll link that in the description. Might be worded better than this right now, but I haven't recorded in a while, so hopefully I'm still okay at it. So let's check this out. So Picross is a form of games. I think they're called nanograms. This is the more official term for them, but they're also commonly called Picross. And they're puzzle games. I always think of it as sort of like in the same vein as something like Sudoku, where basically you have this grid, and in the rows and columns you'll see these numbers next to them. The numbers indicate squares that must be filled in. And so if there's like a 1 and a 2 in that row, for example, or something like that, there's going to be a space where there's a 1 square filled in, and at least 1 space between that and a set of 2 squares filled in that line. So you have to do them in sequence, and they have to be continuous to make those numbers. But the puzzle part is then figuring out where they have to go. You don't necessarily know where this 1 square filled in this grid is supposed to be on this one line. But if you find other stuff to give you contextual clues, you can find out where things can't go, where things have to go, like counting so far in from the sides or something to see if things overlap, that kind of thing. Seeing, okay, well, this number is in here, so now there can't be anything behind this, or there can't be this in front of this. There's a lot of logic that goes into it that you'll kind of pick up as you play. And that's where a lot of the challenge is understanding the puzzles, figuring out the forward thinking of like, okay, well, this has to go here, and this can't go here, so this has to be this. A lot of thinking in that headspace, which sounds really confusing, but once you start doing it and you start seeing it and recognizing the patterns, you'll catch on to it, you'll get good at it, and eventually it'll become second nature to you. And you're supposed to then do this to figure out where things have to go, then going back to other places, figuring all them out until eventually you get the entire puzzle done through the logic. It's a logic puzzle. And then at the end it'll usually form some kind of picture of something. So that's the basic idea of Picross. Mario's Picross is largely that. So you start the game off, and there's the how to play. You can just give you the basics and teach you how to play, which, of course, I would recommend if you're new to Picross. And you just get a few little extra puzzles when you do that anyway, so you might as well just do it if you want to do a couple extra, and just for full completion, because it's not like it's necessarily difficult to complete the Picross stuff. It's just like you just have to do it for the most part. And then there is a Easy Picross, which is a set of 64 puzzles you can do. These are usually smaller grids on the Easy Picross, I believe, is the main thing. Then you go to, once you do those, you can then do Picross. There's two sections of Picross. there's I'm gonna forget now. Kinoko, whatever the first. Look at the written review. I wrote it down there. It probably shows up on the screen when I go to look at the game, but on the gameplay you'll be seeing anyways. But it's there's 2 courses. One is a word I'm not familiar with, and the other is Star Course. And both of those also contain 64 puzzles each, and they're larger and typically larger grids for those puzzles, and so they're a bit more difficult as well, trying to scale up in difficulty. And for all of those puzzles, they have pretty much the same set of rules. You're filling in squares, of course, and then you're also trying to cross off squares because you have the ability to X out squares that you know where nothing can go, as is the way you do Picross stuff. You find out what has to be filled in and what can't be filled in, and work your way in from that logic. And basically, you have, I believe it's 30 minutes to complete the puzzle. Your timer is going up, and rather than down, I believe. Maybe it's going down. Now I feel really stupid because it's been a while since I played it. But basically, you have 30 minutes to complete the puzzle. Every time you... I think it's going down. But every time you make a mistake, as in filling in, I don't think it counts for crossing out squares, but I believe for filling in squares, for sure filling in squares that are not supposed to be filled in, the game will automatically correct you on that, and then it'll dock you some time, and it starts increasing each time into a certain point, and since you only have, 30 minutes, after a few mistakes, that could, lead to, failing and having to do the whole thing over again. And it records your best times on those, for each of those. So that's another little thing that's in there, I suppose. The other bit to it is that you can start with the hint roulette, or not, and basically it'll just randomly fill in a row or column for you at the beginning of the level, so or the puzzle, so it'll make it a little easier on you if you're having trouble with it. I mean, that's basically it for those, fill stuff in, try not to fail that. There's Mario is in it. He's up in the corner, and the idea is that you're chiseling these things open with a chisel, so there's a little hand and chiseling stuff when you're marking the spaces. So there's that. You can also select which music you want, or even turn the music off entirely in the game while you're playing, the different puzzles. If you want to switch up the music a bit, that's a thing you can do. And I believe that's pretty much it for the easy Picross and then the 2 normal Picross sets of stages. Just doing that, making the pictures, trying to complete them within the time limit. And then there's time trial, which is basically the same idea, except that you don't select your puzzle. The puzzles just cycle through randomly. There are still 64 puzzles, and I believe they programmed it so that you will find each puzzle will show up, you won't get a repeat before you've seen at least every single puzzle once. So there's that. And then you just go through all of those, and you'll know once you've gone through them all, because you'll finally find a repeat. And in time trial, the difference here is that it's recording your best time still, but it doesn't have a time limit, so you can take as long as you want. If you take a really long time, you're taking a long time. You don't get any time penalties either, so there's no ways for it to auto-check if what you're doing is right or wrong. If you mess up, you might have to undo the whole thing and redo it, but you won't actually have to stop playing the level at any point unless you decide to quit. And I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm not even sure if there's an ability to save in the levels. There might be. That's something. If there was that ability, I didn't try it. I'm very sorry I didn't find out for that feature. I just kind of blazed through a lot of this. But there are 3 save files on the system, so basically if you have 2 other people who want to play the game, you can all play it. that's basically all there is. I mean, I wish I could say more and have more details, but that's pretty much it. It's a lot of Picross when Mario's in the corner, and there's basically just the two different kinds in here, and that's it. So for positives, this Picross. If you like Picross, it's a lot of Picross puzzles. It's like over 250 puzzles in your Game Boy game. That's a lot. It'll keep you occupied for a long time. If you're getting into Picross, it's good for that. Because then it'll be kind of interesting to learn it, and then you get to see all these different pictures you're making, and that's kind of neat. And as you go along, it ticks all those off. It's like you just get this kind of sense of accomplishment, even though you are kind of just killing time with a lot of it. But it's pretty fun if you want to train your brain a bit, do some logic puzzles. It makes you have to kind of think about what you're doing a little bit there. And getting some of those skills in, like when you have a really tough puzzle, but you figure out the little trick it tried to throw at you, feels great. It's fairly cheap. I don't know how much it goes for physically, but the eShop one is like $2, I think, $2 or $3. It's cheap, and for what you're getting, that's a pretty good amount of stuff if you're into it. I mean, and it functions. It's pretty good, I suppose. I mean, it's hard to say much. It does what it does well, even if there's just not a lot to say about how it does it. Though, I do have some gripes, but most of them are nitpicky. And so it's going to sound like I am really negative on this, but I'm not that negative on it. Just hear me out here. So, it's nice that they let you pick your music. That's cool. I kind of wish they had more music to pick from, and I wish the music was better, but that's also just kind of a preference thing. Like, maybe you'll actually really like the music. I don't know. I thought it just sounded more like generic, kind of meaty Game Boy music. So maybe something that sounded a little more like Mario would have been nice. Or having more song selections for how many puzzles you're doing and how long you're doing it. That maybe you could have thrown in a few more, I guess, I felt like. The puzzles are largely making up just random shit. Every once in a while you'll find something that's like, oh, here's a boo, here's a Goomba. But most of the stuff seems to be really, like, average, everyday shit, and, like, not specifically Mario stuff, and, like, that is kind of annoying. I kind of wish they would have made it more about, the Mario stuff, and really play with that Mario stuff a bit more. Mario's up in the corner, it doesn't really need to be there. It would pretty much be the same if it was just not Mario in the corner, not using a Mario hand, and not pretending like it's a Mario game. He's really just there to try and sell a Picross game. I also think that they could give you some better options, like giving you the option to not have the autocorrect on would have been nice, but instead it's just part of the way the game is built, so there's still like a fail state to it. Then again, if you fail, it also feels kind of annoying because it's like, well, I ran out of time because I made a few mistakes, and now you have to do all that stuff over again rather than having it just do like the time trial did, where it just takes your time. And like it really should have been kind of structured like time trial with the option to turn autocorrect on or off. And I believe it's the same people that made that Zelda Picross one, which they kind of fixed that stuff in that one. But in here it is a little primitive. You're kind of stuck with what they preset as like, these are the rules. So nice that there's a fail state, but kind of annoying for the kind of game that it is. And also, it's a little bit laggy, I found. Like, when you're trying to move around, it seems like there's a bit of a lag sometimes, like a certain frame of time where you can't move after, placing something. And, like, there's a weird frame of, like, okay, like, you marked this box, but you didn't move or try to mark more right away, so you're sitting there, like, waiting to move. And it has to, like, unload the hand animation or something. I don't know. It's weird, but there were times when, yeah, it just felt like it wasn't moving enough spaces for me, and it was pretty consistently doing that, and it was frustrating. So there's a bit of that. I don't know if that's due to lag or like a weird porting thing, or if it was, I don't know exactly what it is, but it was so consistent. I can't imagine it was just my system, because I played other games. I played that other Picross game even, like I mentioned, and it didn't have that issue. So it's weird that this one did, and that's not gonna, if you take your time a bit more and you're careful, it's not gonna be a big deal, but it is a little frustrating when you want to go quickly, especially if you're getting into a time crunch and you've made some mistakes, and it's really annoying to make a mistake because it lagged on you, which wasn't your fault. So, I mean, there was definitely room for improvement in this one, but we'll say that. As good as it is, there was room for some improvement in a lot of very nitpicky ways. that's Mario's Picross. Overall, you know, it's a game I would say that I recommend if you want to get into Picross. Because it's a little more widely available. Maybe you can find it on Game Boy. Maybe just get it on the 3DS, you know, Virtual Console, whatever. It's cheap and it's worth a few bucks. I'd say it's probably worth about $5. I mean, if you're into puzzle games and you really like this kind of thing, maybe a bit more. But it's not much of a Mario game, even though it says Mario's Picross on it. It's just kind of there to ease you into the idea of, hey, what's Picross? I don't know, but Mario's in it, right? And if you don't like it, then, you know, then it's like, well, whatever, it was a cheap game, I guess I don't like Picross. But if you do like it, then you're like, oh, there's a bunch of other Picross games for you to check out, and it's a new, like, genre of puzzle game for you to jump into. So that's pretty much it, I guess. Yeah, I would recommend it for puzzle fans, for Picross fans, and those who are thinking to get into Picross, if you want to drop just a few bucks on it. And while I wouldn't say it's one of the best Game Boy titles or like an underrated classic or something, it's interesting, and I think it's kind of weird that it's something that really didn't catch on here. So I don't know why that was or not, but you know, that's just my take. I don't know. What did you guys think? Have you played Mario's Picross, and what did you guys think of it? And what is the best Picross game you've played, or what are some other good Picross games to play? You know, like leave that stuff in the comments. That'd be interesting to know. And hopefully this review didn't suck ass. Like I said, I haven't reviewed anything in a while. It's not. I don't necessarily release all my reviews in the order I recorded them, but this is the first I've done in like months. So hopefully it's okay, and you don't, you know, think I suck now. And as always, you know, check out that written review now if you haven't yet, because it will probably say things better than I said them here. Any other comments you want to leave? Like, dislike, subscribe, unsubscribe. Do all the stuff you do on YouTube. That's cool. And I don't know. What other weird shit should I review next? You know, suggestions. I like the cheap suggestions and the things no one talks about. Those are sometimes interesting. I don't know. I think that's all it is. So, I'm a real person. Yeah.